I can still picture the scene. It was a beautiful Saturday morning just outside the city, and it was a day that was perfect for a bike ride. That is until I started going up a hill, and while switching gears, the chain fell off. Luckily, I was able to clip out of my pedals just in time to avoid falling into the roadside ditch. And it didn't take long to actually get the pedal back on the bike, but then I made a rookie mistake. You see, I tried to start from where I was stopped, which is facing uphill. In fact, I actually tried it a couple of times, but there was just so much resistance. It was really, really difficult to get started. And then it struck me, oh, just turn the bike around, face downhill, and once you get started, just turn around and then you can go uphill once you are actually in motion. As you can probably guess, it worked. And the same principle applies in other areas of your life. Instead of starting while facing uphill with lots of resistance, turn around, start downhill, and then once you get going, you can tackle that hill with momentum. Now, I've been thinking a lot about this actual incident I experienced lately as I tackle an area of my business that I have been avoiding, and that is outreach. Now, today I'm sharing why I've been putting it off for so long, how I've gotten started, which involves going downhill first, and there is actually a big question that I know I still need to answer because I know once I do, it actually will make a significant difference. In fact, maybe that is going downhill. So, in case you are new here, I do want to say hi, welcome. I am Kat. And on this podcast, I am sharing behind the scenes as I try real time experiments to help me follow through on what matters and find momentum as a speaker and a writer. Now, let's get into it. Outreach. So, first, I just want to clarify what I mean when I say this. I mean, reaching out to people about speaking opportunities. Now, this doesn't always mean reaching out just to pitch. It could be reaching out, asking questions, recommendations for opportunities that might be a good fit for me, and just really having conversations about possible speaking opportunities. To date, most of my speaking opportunities have been inbound. So they are through people that I already know or they know me and they've actually reached out and said, "Hey, are you good to do a talk?" Sometimes this is in person, but more often it is virtual, just given the nature of my background and my ability to run a virtual session. This has been great because I've had really cool opportunities to speak at different events or as part of webinars or summits. And I love that. I so appreciate it, and it's inconsistent. You can't just only rely on inbound, especially when you're at a point in your career where I am just kind of starting something still relatively new. I haven't been at this very long. And it's not that I haven't done any outbound reach outs at all. The outreach has happened. It's just that it's a bit sporadic. And when it comes to speaking, I have applied for some conferences. I've had some success. I spoke at a conference in Toronto last year with my new topic, but I've also experienced rejections in the past, definitely. And, it doesn't feel good. And I mentioned in the sort of description and the title of this podcast around this fear of rejection, or at least alluded to a big fear, and that is rejection. But it's not just that. It's not the only reason I'm putting it off. And this lack of consistent outreach is a prime example of where I'm actually tackling multiple roadblocks. On a logical roadblock level, I have trouble knowing exactly who I'm reaching out to and what exactly I'm pitching. And I'm going to come back to that one because that is still a big deal. The second type of roadblock, biological, is that there's no real deadline for outreach. You can reach out to someone at any time. And even if there is an event with a deadline to apply, I would have to already know about the event, and I'm actually not even doing a good job of finding events I could apply for, so I don't even know those deadlines. But finally, the one I already alluded to, the psychological roadblock is this fear of rejection. Putting yourself out there, putting yourself forward with an idea, and just not wanting to feel that fear of rejection. That I think can be something that is really difficult for me. I mean, it's not just me. This is difficult for everyone, but it's one of those things where I definitely have this caution that I have where if I get told no, maybe this means that I am not putting forward a good proposal. My proposal is not good enough. It could be that my topic actually isn't good enough. Maybe no one wants to hear this, or maybe just I'm not good enough. And now, as I say these out loud, I know they're not 100% valid, but remember, fear is emotional, not logical. And the way that we start to push back against these fears is we start to ask, why do I assume this is going to happen? And how can you challenge these and challenge these safely, which is one of the things that I'm doing now. So let's talk about what I'm doing now in order to try and get over this. So, first, I just want to comment on the fact that putting out a public commitment to reach a million people through speaking and writing has been a really good thing for me in that I have just publicly declared it and I'm not going to take it back because it's true. And are there times where I kind of wish I was secretly doing this so that if I'm not making progress, then nobody knows? Yeah, kind of, but that's the whole reason that accountability works for me. So, this is one of the ways I'm applying this biological, I'm kind of creating pressure and a deadline, which I respond well to. The other thing is that I decided to join a community specifically that offers co-working calls that are structured and they are for outreach. Because just saying I'm going to do it and having a public tracker, that's really helpful, but I still need to structure it into my week. And in the past, whenever I have put a placeholder in my week and maybe it said business development or outreach or whatever it said, it was an internal expectation. It was not a real thing on the calendar. It could be easily pushed. And so I pushed it. And this by joining a community that specifically has outreach calls. So this community is run by my friend and colleague, Jessica Lackey. And she not only has resources for, okay, how do you do outreach? Who are your different circles, your network? So she has that educational piece, but then there's the implementation. And actually, on the first call that I attended, which was this week, it was amazing to see how many people were showing up. And it sounds like there's actually been a real groundswell of people who are saying, I need to show up every week and I need to commit to doing this. So, doing this with other people who are also doing the same thing also makes it feel like it's more attainable and more reasonable. So, that's been a really, I think, beneficial thing. It's early, but I am walking the walk. I'm doing the thing that I know works for me. It is a really good strategy for me to do co-working, but also that structure of having that call set out that way. And when I say that, it means it's broken into different blocks so that everyone is guided through that call. Now, the other thing that I'm doing, and this is related to my story about the bike, when it comes to starting downhill, I started this Monday with just not overthinking and reaching out to people who maybe I'd already started conversations with, or at least we had had enough of an initial conversation where I felt like it was the next natural step for me to reach out. So to say, hey, does your community or membership have guest expert talks? And if so, could I come in and talk? I purposely chose people where it felt like either a low risk of rejection because maybe they actually expressed an interest already, or there's someone who I trust, even if they say no, it would be gentle and that it would not be any kind of statement on who I am as a person. I know that they have respect for me and my work. And so I started there. And honestly, it was so beneficial for me. I did actually receive a rejection, but it was so kind that I felt good about it. And this is the example of how do you overcome your fears, your hesitations. And one of the things is by taking action and also noticing when a bad thing happens, how do you feel? Now, in this case, I purposely went to someone where maybe rejection wouldn't feel so bad, and that was true. But now that I've done this and taken that action, I can kind of store that as evidence that even getting rejection does not have to be bad, and you can keep on getting up and talking to other people. The other piece that I mentioned around going downhill and just not overthinking is that for a very long time, I had it in my head and even in my project database that I really wanted to have a fully built out strategy and outreach plan and CRM all put in place before I even start my first outreach. And that I realized was a big drawback. I would stall because I was waiting for this whole vision of my outreach to be perfect before I even start. And that's what I had to kind of erase and just say, this whole starting downhill thing, just get into motion. You don't have to have anything perfect. Just say, hey, remember we had that conversation? Is this something that might work? Just not overthinking it has been really, really helpful because I'm just reaching out to people and people that I trust. I do eventually want to have a strategy in place. And that actually does lead to the question I alluded to earlier, this big question that I need to answer, which is I am a person who has chosen to talk about a topic, follow through, finding your momentum that could technically help anyone. And if you are an entrepreneur or in business, you probably know that all of the advice says you need to pick an audience, you need to have a niche, you need to talk to one type of person. And one of the challenges I have faced is I actually do not have any kind of strategy as far as who am I pitching? Now, in the future, I absolutely would like to have clarity on who am I approaching? Is this more larger events, associations? Is this more corporate, intact teams, etc.? What industry? And yes, I can talk to different industries, but I think really just knowing, and then that way I can start to form contacts, form relationships, and really just focus my attention and energy instead of spreading it out and having my attention and energy go in a lot of different directions. The reason I actually feel okay about the fact that I haven't answered that question just yet is because I am still in an early, I would say, experimental phase where I don't have to have it all figured out. I do want to start with this downhill approach of just who's already in my network, who can I start talking to so that I can at least get in the reps of doing presentations, talking to people, answering questions, hearing questions that people have for me. What language is landing the best? And then I can start to sort of formulate, okay, who seems to be responding and what direction should I take? And here's the other thing that's good news for me when it comes to outreach is that outreach is not just pitching talks, it's also doing research of asking people who are some industries or companies or associations, events that might be a good match for what I teach. So that allows me to not only have conversations with people in my network, but it also helps me learn and do research about what my options are so that when it comes time, I can actually start to make those decisions around who am I talking to? What is sort of that value proposition? Really, what am I pitching? Who am I talking to and why? Now that brings me to the tracker. So I do have the tracker. It has been updated and I am going to share this, but I'll also walk through it for anyone who is listening audio only. Not gonna lie, it's a little humbling. I think I might have said that last week to you, but it's as I record this, we're almost halfway through the month and my posting progress is not great. It's 20%. So I had aimed for 20 posts in the month of August. I have posted 4. There will be more by the end of this week, but I gotta get my butt into gear. No pun intended. The outreach progress. So I know I started with my downhill approach, people that I trust, and that is true. My outreach though is at 15%. I had targeted 40, which is ambitious for 40 individual outreach, but I'm at 6. However, that 6 felt good, and I think I want to embrace a little bit more of that research bent. What I just shared with you is starting to ask people, are there events or associations or groups or companies, like just really starting to get a feel and put out some feelers for what might be a good match. Also, if you're listening right now and you've got an idea, please don't hesitate to tell me. I would love to hear from you. Now, I actually did have a couple of really amazing conversations last week, but I didn't reach out to them. They actually had reached out. One was an outreach to me, and then the other was a connection request or between to a friend of mine, basically a mutual friend. We had amazing conversations, and actually I ended up booking a talk through one of those conversations, but I'm not counting it here because I did not initiate the outreach, and that's the practice I have to get better at. It's not responding to calls and inbound requests, it's that I need to get over my hesitation and actually reach out to other people. Now, the results. So I have this month booked 3 speaking engagements for the future. A couple of them are happening in the next few weeks, and another one is a bit later in the fall, but I'm counting anything that I book in this month, even if it happens in the future. And then for appearances, so I had the appearance last week. I'm actually recording another podcast later this week. I don't know when it'll be released. For appearances, I will I'll track those in the month they actually are released. So a little bit different. Appearance, is it out there in the public? And for booked speaking gigs, it's actually just what is the result of my outreach. And then down at the bottom, we've got the outcome, which is audience members and subscribers. And for subscribers, since in the last 12 days, I have 25 new subscribers. And for audience members, that will change this week. I am doing a talk to a private community. So I will reflect how many people actually attended that talk, but I don't know the number yet. And for subscribers, I do want to, when I see that number, I mean, it's not a bad thing. It's going in the right direction, but I do want to make that higher. And as I mentioned last week, that is something that I I'm working on a quiz, and I do think the quiz will be helpful. It's just that that has not been made yet. And I did see in the comments someone had shared like, "I'd like to be a tester." So it's nice to know that I have people who are eager and willing to test out the quiz, but I know that that could be something that could really help. Also, doing these appearances, having these talks, that can help with subscriber numbers. They tend to be smaller groups because I'm going into existing communities. So it depends on how many people show up. But I actually I think the quality of person who joins my list after hearing a talk is higher than, say, a recommendation from another newsletter where someone just kind of clicks yes as they're signing up. They really don't know anything about me versus someone who actually sees me talk. That can make a real difference. And so I'm looking forward to that. Now, just knowing that I have this tracker, that I'm sharing these numbers, and that you right now, as a listener, are hearing real numbers like this, it's working. It's humbling, but it's working. So it doesn't just keep me honest, it's also a regular reminder each week as I go before I record this podcast to update it. I can see exactly what I have to do. I am facing those numbers, and it's making me say, okay, what do you have to do? Like, stay on this goal. This goal matters to you. And this means even facing my fear of rejection, of someone telling me no, because that's what I have to do in order to take action and follow through on what really matters.